and we were talking about Dr. King's dream and the dream that we all have for ourselves. Well, I'll tell you a little secret. A lot of you may not know this, but Black people actually owned, I think, about 15 times more land 100 years ago than we own today. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but we actually were much bigger landowners than we are now, and we kind of traded in our land for jobs and bachelor's degrees and student loan debt and everything else. And so the brother that I have as my guest today is a man who wants to change some of that. He has an very interesting project happening down in North Carolina. His name is Gary McCummins. And so I want to ask my brother, Gary, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing wonderful, brother. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Now, Gary is he's not just a former college athlete. He was a great athlete in college and in high school and everything else. And but also he happens to have a family that has a legacy of education. His father, if I'm not mistaken, tell me if I'm wrong on this, was the president of Cheney University. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what? Let's say your father's name so we can give him a nashe. What was his name?
My father's name was Dr. Laverne McCummins.
So Dr. Laverne McCummins. So everybody put an ashe in the chat for Dr. Laverne, who's watching from heaven. I heard they have great Wi-Fi in heaven, so I'm sure he's joining us today. And so Gary, so you reached out because you have not just because we both have a Syracuse connection. You actually you played ball at Syracuse and studied there, but also you have an interesting project going on where you got some land that you'd like to do some things with. Can you kind of tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, let me just first off start with the project is here outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, and the first part of the project is I made a commitment probably about last year. I made the commitment that we have got to stop waiting for somebody to feed us. Our family, I've been blessed. Our family has over 400 acres of land out here in this area. And the land is being used for various things, but not what it should be used for, which is feeding our people. And I made a commitment to myself. I made a commitment to my family that this land will be utilized in a couple of different ways. And the first one will be to grow food and feed the people in our communities. That it's time for us to stop asking for anyone to feed us and to grow food for us. Our communities are food deserts. And it's time for us to do something about it and stop waiting for someone to save us. So that's where that was given to me straight by the Creator. And I was outside looking over the land, and I have a man that farms the property, a white guy that farms the property. There were over 350,000 tobacco plants out there. And so here's all these tobacco plants. And the Creator told me very clearly that I'm not doing what I need to be doing. Our people are starving, and that I needed to do more than what I was doing.
Well, let me ask everybody here who's watching, if everything went down tomorrow, if the worst of the worst happened tomorrow, and our community was, under siege, or there was something terrible happening where everything just fell apart and the infrastructure went down, the grid, we were off the grid. Do you believe that Black people have the ability to feed and take care of ourselves? What do you think? I mean, do you think that we have what we need? Do you think we even have the skills to the point where even if someone gave us the land, will we even know what to do with the land? Give me a yes or no in the chat. And so I'd like to pass that question to you, Gary. Yeah. I'll tell you, I feel like, and it's especially interesting that we're talking about this on MLK Day. I don't think we're ready. I think that we have a lot of work to do, even in terms of what we value as signs of success. I think the value system starts. So, for example, you were a great athlete, and what sport did you play?
I played football.
Football. I know what sport. I'm sorry. What position? That's what I meant.
I played offensive line. I played guard, offensive line.
Okay, so you were you had to be good because back at that time Syracuse had an extraordinary football team. This year was a little tough, but back then y'all were winning championships and undefeated and everything else. You became a great athlete, and also your family valued education. The education was a high priority. Yes. And the reason that you were good at both education and athletics was because that was something you desired. Yes. That was something you saw as a core value. That was something that in your mind said, I define myself based on how hard I work on the field, how hard I work in the classroom, etc. right?
Yeah.
And so the reason I bring that up is because we tend to be good at the things we value, the things we learn the things we want to learn. We know how to do the things we want to know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted to know how to play football, and you learned how to play football. And so I translate that to how many of our kids grow up wanting to even know how to farm or hunt and fish, or how many of our kids grow up wanting to know how to even build assets, even own assets, even own land, period. Right. So it almost seems to me, Gary, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Do you think that there's a necessity for us to find a way to really shift our values as a community in terms of what defines success for us as people? How does that play into that?
Well, I think there's absolutely a need for us to shift our values, and it starts with our food supply and growing our food and being able to sustain ourselves. I'm with you. I did not know how to grow anything. I grew up in the city. This land has been in my family since 1908, and they were farmers. My great grandfather bought the first parcel of land in 1908, and he had and Black people were really not supposed to be owning any land at that time. And as he passed, my uncle Grover, who was my grandmother's brother, took it and just expanded. And that's what he was. He was a farmer, and he had a huge operation. He grew tobacco. He was a sharecropper, and he employed a lot of people in this area. And as a result of that, he and his brother, my grandfather's brother, was also able to acquire a large amount of land. So we're sitting here with 400 or 500 acres of land, and after they pass and my family and my parents pass and the land goes to them, it's us here, and none of us know how to farm. I don't know how to farm. I don't, to be totally honest with you. And we've gotten so far removed from our food source and how to sustain ourselves. But I think that we are getting to a point now where we understand that if we don't feed ourselves, we're going to starve. They're going to starve us. That's what's happening in our communities right now as we speak. I have a teammate, Rob Carpenter. He's out there. Shout out to Rob. And he had told me a story the other day about he's in Newark and looking out his window, and they were doing a food drive, and there's a park behind his home. He said when he gets on his bike and goes around the park, it's an 8-mile ride. He said they did this food drive, and it was 8 miles of our people lined up around this park to go and get a moderate amount of food. It's unbelievable. And it's not just in that community. Our communities are starving. In our school systems, these kids are all online now. They counted on those meals for breakfast and for lunch. What do you think that they're doing now? And you go into our communities, and like I said, they're food deserts. Look at those little stores that aren't owned by us, and look what food is in there. And then you wonder why our people are so sick and starving and dying. And so we've got to do something. We've got to do something. And I'm committed to doing it. And I told you, I'm not a farmer, but I'm going to put my own resources, the land and everything I have into growing some food for my people.
Wow.
It's what we're called to do.
Wow. Everybody who's watching, I'm speaking to Gary McCummins, and Gary is he's a good brother. And I don't even want to put a label on him other than good brother. And I think that should be enough. And he also has some land, 250 acres, if I'm not incorrect on that, that he wants to develop perhaps into a town or something that will allow our people to own land as well as grow food and things like that. And if you could, everybody, if you're watching, first of all, happy Martin Luther King Day. If you're watching this live, also hit the thumbs up button. We are not just getting our own land and property, but we're also growing our own media as well, so we can make sure that the messages are not poisoned. You know, I feel like they're poisoning the food. I think they're also poisoning the message. And so we have to control that message. So take 1 second right now, hit the thumbs up button so the video will go further. Hit the share link if you can, and or subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when we go live. Everybody, take a second to do that if you could. So let me ask you about this, brother. I pulled up some causes of death. Leading causes of death for Black people, and the leading causes of death that I see are typically related to things like heart disease,
Mm-hmm.
cancer,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Things that, not to say that these are easily preventable, but
Mm-hmm.
these things are definitely related to food.
Mm-hmm.
They say that, diabetes, obesity, these are things that, give me a yes or no, everybody, if you know what I'm talking about. These are things that are linked to your lifestyle. These are things that are linked to what you eat. One thing I've noticed is that if you look at the other man, they tend to die from things that might be genetic. We've got some special
Exactly.
genes in our body. I really believe
Right.
that so basically the only people strong enough really to kill us typically is us,
Mm-hmm.
right? In terms of whether you're talking about homicide or eating the wrong food and
Right.
becoming obese or having
Right.
diabetes, things like that. And we all have seen that. We many of us have relatives who died from the cancers
Mm-hmm.
or Big Mama got her foot cut off and stuff like that.
Right.
And from the food we eat and everything. So I see this as a life or death kind of mission, and I
Mm-hmm.
also see this as something that almost requires something that's akin to the vision that you have for
Mm-hmm.
actually having a town where a lot of the resources are controlled from the bottom to the top,
Right. Right.
because it's connected, right? It's
Right.
what you eat is shaped also by what you learn, and
Exactly.
because you learn to eat the wrong thing and the right
Exactly.
things, right?
Well, we as a
Okay,
community
sorry.
have convinced ourselves that the different diseases and ailments that hit our community are things that are inherited, that are things that are passed down genetically. And the only thing is that is passed down genetically is how we continue to feed ourselves and how the things that we continue to consume that poison us generation after generation after generation. And those are things that were taught to us a long, long time ago. This is all embedded in our mentality. It's a slave mentality, and we still eat like slaves. And that's where we are right now. And if we don't change what we are consuming, we're not going to be able to change anything else about the mentality of who we are.
Mm.
And
Wow.
so the community, for me, the food is a start to segue us into this community. We know that we must rekindle Black Wall Street and those kinds of places if we are going to survive. There is no other way for us. We've tried it the other ways, and it has not worked for us, and it is not working for us. And all you need to do, if you don't believe me, is take a look at the news and take a look at what's going on in our communities and how we're starving and there are no jobs for us. And we're begging them to help us, and they won't. They haven't for 465 years now, and they will not. And if we do not come together and help each other and build this community and control our food supply, control our economic stance, Dr. Anderson has laid it out for us. He's laid it out for us, exactly what we need to do. And I'm here to call to my people. We must change. We've got to wake up, and we've got to wake up right now. The time is now.
All right, everybody. This is Gary McCummins, and Gary McCummins is out of North Carolina, and his family owns some land, and he wants to do some interesting things with this land in terms of building a town. He believes that we shouldn't just own land, but we should learn what to do with that land. And also, and then the reason I am 100% in agreement with what he's saying is not just because he's out of Syracuse like I am. He actually played football for the Qs back in the day, but also because I think this is something that's very important. You guys know that I believe in ownership, and it's either own or be owned. And I think that MLK Day, Gary, I think is a perfect time to really talk about this. Because as much as we love Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement and the dreams that folks had, I almost wonder if we need to have a dream 2.0. A slightly different dream. Not to say that the original dream was all bad, but it almost seems like we got to kind of level up our dream and have a stronger dream. So tell me about the dream of Gary Cummins and also the dream of Dr. Laverne Cummins and what that might look like for you.
Well, and to the point that you said was that, Dr. King's dream was changed. Desegregation, they changed the dream. See, what we were asking for from the very, very beginning was equal access, equal opportunity. That's what we were asking for as a people. And my father used to say it all the time as he went throughout this movement was that they changed it to proximity. And so what they did was they put us near them. They let us go to their schools. They let us enter into their stores. They let us enter into their lives. And then they ignored us as though we were never there. When the real deal was that we were asking for access to the resources so that we could continue to do what we were doing in our own community from the very beginning. We were educating our own people before this. And then when desegregation happened, where did all of our teachers go? They were gone. Less than 2% of them kept teaching jobs. And as a result, what happened to the children in our community? What's happened to them? No other race of people would allow someone else to educate their children in the manner that we do. And that's just the truth. That's what it is, Dr. Boyce. And so from a very beginning, from a very early age, I told you when I was speaking with you earlier that my rite of passage and my brother as men for my father at 12 years old, where we had to read the book, The Peculiar Institution. And for those of you that don't know that book, that is a book written by slave owners. They chronicled, that's what they called, they didn't call it slavery. They referred to it as the Peculiar Institution. Institution meaning that they intended for it to last forever. They never intended for it to stop. And it hasn't to this day. And in that book, the slave owners talk about what it takes to turn a man and a woman into a slave, into a piece of property. And my father's reasoning for having my brother and I read that book was, you're going to decide what type of man you're going to be as you walk through this life. Will you be a slave or will you be a free man and make a decision? You're going to make that decision right now at 12 years old. And then we went from there.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, when you talk about the lack of preparedness that we have, and you look at where America is right now with all the chaos, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And also you consider the fact, again, that it is MLK Day, which I think makes this entirely appropriate. I was thinking to myself, when you talk about developing a town on this property, 250 acres. First thing I'll tell you that I like about
actually a little over 500 acres that we control. Our family controls. My great grandfather's brother as well. We are sitting on over 500 acres right outside of the Raleigh, North Carolina area. And he, like us, he's also allowing someone to rent the farm because we don't have it's been lost. And I know it's still out there, the knowledge of how to do it, how to farm effectively, how to feed our people. It's out there. It's out there. And so we just have to pool that knowledge. But yeah, it's over 500 acres, Dr. Watkins.
Okay, well, I think that's great. And I mean, I don't know where I got the number 250 from, but
that's just our family. But then there's our another part of our family that has some more that's adjoining our land. It actually adjoins our property. So we control on that section of the county. We control quite a bit of the land that is on that section of county, but we've not utilized it properly. We've not known how to utilize it properly, and a lot of what the idea of doing this has just really come from listening to you and also listening to Dr. Anderson, reading through Powernomics and getting an understanding of what we need to do as a people to do this. And then it came to me that this is the calling. This is my calling to my people. We've got to do something. We've got to do something. And I reached out to you and talked to you, and because I knew you have access to the people. You do. Everyone that sees you, those of us that listen to you, we're regular watchers. We respect you. You and what Dr. Anderson do for this community is absolutely amazing, and it's absolutely essential to our survival. And it's why I reached out to you. And now, if we do not build, if we do not feed each other and take care of each other, they're going to see to it that we perish.
Well, first of all, I'm humbled by your kind words. Thank you. And I will say this, when I was going through my head on an inventory of the things that it would be nice to be able to run and control, I respected the way you approached this, because you did approach it as a team player. You didn't approach it as a guy who says I'm trying to do all this by myself, and I'm the man, I'm the important guy, and that's it. You instantly did what I think any smart person would do, which is went out to find teammates that can help get this done. And I encourage everybody that's listening to pay attention. You know, that's how you get things done. You know, even when somebody as you know, as extraordinary as Ice Cube, when he was trying to take on the political system on behalf of the Black community, he knew he had the platform. It's similar in the sense that he had this big patch of land called Ice Cube, whatever that brand is, that following, everything else. But he went to other people to say, how do I best utilize this platform so that we can benefit the community? And I encourage everybody to understand that that's what leadership looks like. You know, that good leadership is when you realize that your strength is not just with yourself. Your strength is with the people. You might still be the star if you want to be, but it's really about the people. And so even when you tell me, when you say I reached out to you because you have the people, you're right. The power is not with me. The power is with the people that are listening right now. And actually, I want to ask you this, man, before we forget. Can you give everyone listening a way to reach out to you? It's just so you know, it's going to be a gift and a curse because you're gonna get flooded in your inbox. But I think people need to know. How can
our email address is feeding black communities at gmail.com.
All right.
And through there, we're looking to we're searching for everybody, people that know how to plan this out, that know how to plan out the food and the distribution of the food. We're looking for people that are willing to come in and work and help to harvest all this food. We need people that are willing to come out and help to distribute this food. And so how do we do all that? I don't have anywhere near the amount of answers that need to be done, but I know there are some absolutely brilliant Black people out there. That I do know for sure. We are a brilliant people. And so I ask them to help us. We need to save us. We need to look out for us. And we need to stop waiting for anybody else to do it. The land is here. Springtime, I'm putting food in the ground. If I have to do it myself, I will. But I don't believe that I have to do that. I don't believe that's what it's going to be. I refuse to. You know, my father told me a story one time, Dr. Boyce, and I want to share it. He said to me, because my father was very, very big in the civil rights movement and understanding and trying to change the trajectory of Black people. The reason why he was at Cheney was to change the trajectory of Black people. And he told me this story about us that I refuse to believe is true. And he said, Gary, you know, he said I could have 100 bushels of freedom, 100 bags of freedom. And inside of that bag is the freedom of your mind, the understanding of yourself and your people, the ability to educate yourself and educate your people and build your community. All of that would be self-contained in these 100 bushels that I had. And he said, and I could walk around and go around my community and try to hand them out, and 90% of my people would reject it outright. They wouldn't even want to look in it. They wouldn't want to know what's in it. They wouldn't want to have any idea how to free themselves at all. And I was a young man when he told me that story. Kid, me and my brother, when he told that to us. And he said that he would hope that would change during his lifetime, but that he didn't think it would. That the peculiar institution that was put inside of our brain would force us to keep doing what it is that we were doing. And as a young kid, I had to sit on that. Like, I didn't know what to even do with that. You know what I mean? I don't know. And I'm not sure why he's telling me that, but I really don't know what to do with that. And I come back to that and I share that story because that I don't believe that's the truth about us anymore. If that was the truth about us, I don't believe that's the truth about us. I believe, and in that bag now is powernomics. That's what's in that bag. That's what's inside of that bag. And if you all out here who are listening, if you're not reading that, if you're not educating yourself with that, if you're not bringing that into your sphere, you're missing the point. So that's why I'm here to pass out these bushels of freedom. And I want us to take them, use them.
Well, you know, I'll tell you what. I love your dad, by the way. What was your father, Dr. Laverne? What was he a professor of?
He was in the School of Social Work.
Oh wow! Well, my
my
fiance is a full professor of social work. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. He was. We lived in Syracuse in the 2nd and 3rd grade. He was on the staff at Syracuse, and by the time I was in the 4th grade, he took the job to become the dean of the School of Social Work at Denver University. So we moved to Colorado, and I stayed in Colorado until I graduated from high school. He took the job at Cheyney University as president of Cheyney when I was a junior in high school.
Wow.
Moved back. And my family is really all from the Philadelphia area. So he moved back and took over at Cheyney, and he was at Cheyney for almost 9 years. And I was telling you the story that it fell apart when, and I asked him about it. He stepped down from there and it fell apart. He did an article for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And in that article, they asked him, well, what did he think about, Black colleges and why Black colleges seem to struggle so much? And my father announced to them that it was because white people hated Black people. They were going to do everything that they could to keep us from the resources that we needed to have to succeed. And until we as a people understood that that's exactly what was happening and that's exactly what they intended to continue to happen, we were going to perish. We were never going to get what we wanted. And from that moment on, he was headed on out of the state school system, because Penn State, and there's a lot of states, Pennsylvania schools in that system, and they weren't trying to hear nothing like that from no Black man.
Wow.
That's not a university president. And I asked him, Dr. Watkins, years later before he passed, I asked him, why did you do that? You could have stayed at that school and rode it out. You could have been there for 20, 25 years. And he said to me, I had to. I was a sharecropper. My parents were sharecroppers. We are a generation from slavery. It needs to be said. They're not telling the truth about how they feel about us. And we think that it's something different from them than what it really is. Wow. And until we stop being shocked by what they're doing, they've been doing this.
That's right.
But our mentality as slaves, Dr. Watkins, our mentality is not to do anything about it at all, not to change it at all, to continue to take it. That's what they put us in. If you read The Peculiar Institution, they talked about how to put this curse on us for generations to come, so that they would never have to physically enslave us anymore. The shackles are on our mind, and that's where they remain.
Wow. Well, your dad, he's my type of guy. I don't know if you know my story from Syracuse University, actually, but I had some outspoken racial moments with them, which led to parting of ways, and it was very uncomfortable from the moment I arrived. But it was just one of those things where I actually found that even though I didn't have that institutional support, there's something that grows in you as a human being, especially as a man, that when you become free. When you say, okay, it's time for me to feed myself now, it's time for me to make this work. And so it's really to the point where I'm not even, I think I left Syracuse maybe I officially left 8 years ago, but I unofficially left about maybe 12 years ago, because that was when they just, they gave me a little bit of money, and they said, we just want you to take this little office over here. You have no job, no boss, no nothing. It was a payoff, right? To be quiet. And I took the money. I said, okay, thank you. But it was, it's one of those things where literally, my life improved so much once I left, that I have no ill will, toward them at all. Like, I don't look back and say, man, if they hadn't done me wrong, I would still have that job. I don't give I don't give a damn. It's like I am so much better off. I literally want to thank them. I say thank you for not giving me what I thought I wanted at that time, because a lot of times, they'll give us the little extra crumbs, and we'll be chasing the crumbs, and we don't realize there's a whole feast behind the crumbs if you embrace things like ownership, right, and wealth, as opposed to chasing jobs. I just feel sorry for any of us as Black people that feel that we have to spend our whole lives chasing jobs, like looking for a better pimp. So
we're not the only people that they brought that to. That's what they're teaching in society, to chase a job. And they're especially teaching it to us and teaching it to our children. And because we have no control over the education of our children, whatsoever. We have no say-so in what they teach us. We have no say-so. I shout out brothers like LeBron James and the other schools that are out there that are called at-risk schools for our kids. Let me just tell you something. Our kids, all of our kids are been past at risk. All of our kids, I don't care what school they at, they're at risk. When someone else is educating your child, your whole generation of people are at risk. No one else would allow that to happen, Dr. Watkins. You can't tell me you can't tell me a race of people that allows somebody else to educate their whole generation of their people. No one else does that but us. And that's the slave mentality, Dr. Watkins. That's what that is.
Yeah, buddy. Don't let them cook your food and don't let them educate your kids, because that's very risky, and they will poison your family. Do me a favor, everybody.
Against you. They'll poison that. They'll poison our kids against us.
There you go. That's right. It makes me think about I can't remember which of the Roach Motel type roach spray. It wasn't a spray. It was like the stuff used to kill the bugs. Mm-hmm. And one of the things they would do is they would do something where they would give the poison, like they would put the poison out, and the head of the family would go out and get the poison and take it back to the nest.
Absolutely.
So they could kill all the roaches in the nest. And it makes me think about things like, whether it's education, media, or food. We have individuals that will go out into the world and maybe they will, appear to become successful, right? Or appear to become educated. Like I went to this university, now I'm smarter, when really you learned a bunch of Eurocentric values that are destructive to the community. And then you come back to the community and you're shining because you got a nice job and a nice car, and all the little kids, they don't want to be like their parents at home. They want to be like you, right? Whether you're talking about some of these entertainers or whatever that are coming back with a bunch of nonsense. And it makes me think about that roach thing where you're coming back, and unfortunately some of these individuals are coming back and infecting the community. So it doesn't just happen with the food. It's also the mental, the psychological food that, and actually that was the specific objective with the Native Americans. They specifically had policy that said, we're going to get their children out of their community, bring them to our schools. And in our schools, we're going to punish them for speaking their native language. We're going to punish them for wearing tribal dress. We're going to dress them like us, make them think like us, have them speak our language. And then what we're going to do is we're going to infect the rest of the nest by sending these people back to their community as so-called leaders, fake leaders, similar to how we have fake Black leaders. And we're going to have them sort of naturally exalted in a position of prominence, because they're going to have the most money. They're going to have access to the resources. They're going to want to be something. They're going to become something that the children want to be when they grow up. And that's exactly what happens with our people, I believe. And so let me ask you this, man. I want to lay this list out for you and see what you think in terms of your vision of building a Black town. I like this dream a lot. Give me a yes or no in the chat, everybody, if you like this brother's dream and what he's trying to do. He wants to build a town. His name is Gary McCummins, by the way. And Gary is out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and he and his family control about 500 acres of land, and they want to build a town on this land. It sounds like it might be enough for 2 towns. I don't know, but here's the list I came up with. Just listen to you talk. Is I was thinking, okay, so obviously you need the land. Check, you got that. We need to build some schools, right? Educate our own kids. We got plenty of Black educators out here. All the educators, shout yourselves out. We would need businesses and jobs, right? In different industries, things like that. Create our own jobs in our own industry. Health and healthcare and hospitals, right? Yeah, maybe call it the Triple H. Healthcare and hospitals. Just everything related to helping the sick and the wounded, and then the ways to preventative healthcare, the healthcare system, and then obviously food, which we need to survive. And then I was thinking about security, to be able to defend what you own. Is there anything that comes to mind that I might have left off that list? What do you think?
No. I think you've hit everything right on the head. I absolutely think and those are the things that are absolutely essential if we're going to be able to get this community up and moving and running. Dr. Anderson spells it out really, really well when he talked about the pyramid concept, that there is a strong working class of people who come in that can build and help bring in the infrastructure. There's water already there at the property. We need to bring some other infrastructure. We can put a self-contained sewer system in there. and contain everything ourselves right there within our own community. Dr. Anderson talks about that. Then the second tier is the thinkers and the planners. There's so many of us out there that can put this thing together and put this thing in writing and make sure that we understand we're holding the land the right way, that we're distributing it properly to our people the right way. Those kinds of things. And then the third is the financial class, where our people are comfortable coming in and putting their money in to see their people grow and prosper. He's laid it out for us. It's easy for us. We needed somewhere to do it. And where I'm saying is now we have some places to do it. And I know there's other places. I know in Georgia, some brothers and sisters bought over 90 acres of land, and they're talking about doing it. And you said, I know there's some other places that are talking about doing it. The call is not just for this community, but it's for all of those communities. Seek them out, find them. Because as Dr. Anderson and Dr. Watkins say all the time, we don't have any communities. We got hoods.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's what we have. We don't own nothing in them hoods. We don't run nothing. We don't distribute anything. That's what we have right now. We need a community where we have some control of what is going on, where we have a code of conduct about how we need to behave and what we need to be doing and how we need to do it. We need to stop the free-for-all we got going on in our communities. And the only way that happens is that we take control of our communities and our children.
Well, you know, speaking of talking about the free-for-all, tonight, everybody at 9:30, we're actually going to do a panel discussion. We're going to have an all-black panel. And one of the things we're going to debate, and I'm not telling you what your opinion should be on this, but today on the to celebrate MLK Day on the official Black Lives Matter Instagram page, they had a lady that was doing something that was called Twerk on Washington. So to celebrate MLK, they were twerking on all the Washington monuments and statues and everything else. And so I don't know what you all think about that one way or the other, but come back tonight at 9:30 on drboystv.com. We got a panel of intelligent Black people, and we're going to debate the issue. And that way we can sort of figure out community-wise what a code of conduct looks like. So let me ask the last question, Mr. Gary McCullers. So in terms of fulfilling this vision, and I just think I can't imagine how proud your father must be of you and your family and what you're doing right now. What stage are you at this point in terms of the land? And actually, before you answer that question, I'm gonna give everybody your email address one more time, and I'm gonna give it to them one more time before we bounce out of here too.
Okay.
The email address to contact the McCummins family about this project is feedingblackcommunities@gmail.com. That's feedingblackcommunities@gmail.com. So somebody please type that in the chat for anybody that didn't catch it the second time. So what stage are you in, and how what's the state of the land right now?
Well, the state of the stage we're in right now is that we're going to grow food. That's the very first thing. The food will bring in the people. If we can get food out to our communities, that and sustain that and make that something that is sustainable for us as a people, that will segue us into then bringing this whole thing in as a community. And so right now, my only focus is come springtime when we break ground, I'm going to put every dime of money that I can find and have of my own and put it into seeds and plants and the things that we need to sustain ourselves. And I told my partner up in New York, in Newark, I have no idea how I'm getting food up there, but come look for me come springtime. We will start feeding our people. And that's the call to our people is let's start there. Let's start by feeding ourselves and taking care of ourselves. And I think that the community will fall in place. Us building this community will happen once you know that we can sustain each other and we can sustain ourselves. That's my belief about it.
All right. Well, you know what? I love your vision, man. I think it's great. And everybody in the chat, I hope you can give this brother and his family a digital round of applause for what they are doing. I think it's a great vision. I think it's the right vision. I think people are ready for it. I think that we can talk. It seems almost like you got 3 levels, right? You got the original level that we reached maybe in the civil rights movement, which was good for its time. And then the next level is going after the wealth, right? The ownership, whether it's the stocks and bonds, the real estate, ownership of business. Then the third level is controlling it all from the bottom to the top, growing the food, packing it up, selling it at the market, putting it in the grocery stores, reaching our urban centers, things like that. And I think people are really ready for that. And so, and it's beyond food. It sounds like you want to go beyond that into everything that involves the creation of a town. And one thing I have found really is, and I hope people will hear this, is that, when the racism and white supremacy that we can complain about on a daily basis, a lot of that is driven by the constraints that you're in. I found, for example, that when I wasn't working for certain people on a daily basis, I became less stressed out about day-to-day racism because I didn't have to deal with it anymore. Now I work at home. I'm with my family. There's no racism in our house. We don't treat each other, like my wife is black like me. So we treat each other well. Whereas if I were going down the street to work at, Arby's or something, it might be a different situation. So I think that this whole ownership and control piece is important because a big part of systematic racism is driven by who controls the system.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's why I would say to everybody listening, teach your kids how to build and develop systems like this brother's talking about. And that way they can avoid some of the systematic racism that's out here. So would you like to give the last word, brother? I'd love to hear your final thought that you'd like to leave us with as you move forward.
Well, I guess my final thought is that once again, I appreciate you so much for this and being able to be on here and talk to the folks. That's first and foremost. But I just want to leave a message of hope for my people that, I'm here, I'm on here. I am, and you said it best that I don't look at myself as a lead of this project or anything. I am simply a guide. I am a messenger. This is all, none of this is by chance. This is all by design that this is happening like this, the way that it's happening right now, that I have the understanding that I got from my father, from men like Dick Gregory and Harry Belafonte, and men that my father was around and men that I was around as a result of that. And Dr. Claude Anderson, all of this is a result of them, of those elders. And the time is now. I say to my people, the time is now. Reach out, call, do whatever you can. We have another community thing that's going on up in New York where one of the brothers from the Kennan group, Dwayne, played football with me, and he has gotten together and put together $30 million to rebuild all of the recreation centers and parks in Brownsville, New York. And one day we'll have a chance to talk about that. And we'll be running all the recreational programs. It's time for us to start doing the things that we need to do for us and stop counting on anyone else to save us, because it's not going to happen. And so that's my final word to my people, that there's hope. I don't believe that 90% of us now will reject freedom outright. I don't believe it. I refuse to accept that anymore. And he may have been, my father may have been right at that time, but I don't believe that he's right anymore. And that's why I've come to you to reach out to my people to ask us to save us.
All right. Well, I love it, man. And I'm gonna give the email address one more time for anybody that wants to reach out to Gary. And actually, after Mr. McCummings steps out, I'm gonna read to everybody here the Powernomics lesson of today about stolen land, and I want you all to hear this. And Gary, you can listen backstage if you like. Okay, we'll move to the next stage of the show. Okay. But the email address, everybody, is feedingblackcommunities@gmail.com. That's feedingblackcommunities@gmail.com. This brother's name is Gary McCummings, and Gary is his family controls 500 acres of land. His great father, Dr. Laverne McCummings, who is watching from heaven, he did exactly what we talk about in the generational wealth transfer. He transferred to his family not just the land and the assets, but he transferred a lot of this. And that's why he's my type of guy. And I tell you, we have a tradition of social work scholars in our family. Actually, my wife to be is a full professor of social work. Yeah. Her father was a full professor of social work. And I think that there might be one more social worker beyond him. You know, so
Right.
so that's
and my sister is a doctor of education, like my mother was a doctor of education. So
wow.
like you, it's a legacy of it, and now it's time to put all of those degrees to work. We
There
need
you
to put
go.
that to work
There you
for
go.
us, not
Now,
for us.
now, does everybody in the chat understand how inheritances work? How generational cycles work in your favor? Right, what you do now is going to play a huge role in what your kids do. And actually, the Black Millionaires of Tomorrow program, the URL's on the screen if you actually want to look at our business school for children. Because remember, what you teach your kids now is going to matter. That's going to shape what they're doing in the year 2070. 50 years from now, one of your kids is going to be sitting there with somebody like me. I'll be gone probably by then, but they'll be sitting there just like my brother's sitting here, and they're going to be having a conversation, and they're going to be referencing things that you were talking about in the 2020s, the 2030s, and the 2040s. Do you follow me? Because now we're sitting here in the year 2020, and Gary is referencing things that he and his father discussed in the 1970s, the 1980s, and the 1990s. Do you follow me? So that's how generational wealth transfer occurs, and most of that wealth is not money. Forget money. I'm talking about teaching them the game, preparing them to take that next leg. He passed down the field. That's how you win. Wealth is a team sport. Power is a team sport. So I want to say thank you, brother. It's very good to see you today.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to having you back.
And listen, as I said to you on the phone, that you and Dr. Anderson are a huge part of this thing. So we'll be talking regularly. I need your counsel. I need your guidance. I need your planning. I need that from you definitely. So we'll be talking regularly. Yes,
all
sir.
right. Well, I already told Dr. Anderson about what you're doing, and so I'll be talking to him about it again in a couple of days for sure. So God bless you, brother. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
You too. All right. Peace.
All right.
Okay, everybody. So what I want to do is we're going to do our Powernomics lesson for today. Let me turn this heater off real quick. Hit the thumbs up button. Everybody hit the thumbs up button. Share, subscribe before I run and turn the heater off while I do this. But stay right there. I want to read something to you from the book Black Labor, White Wealth. This is appropriate for what Gary was just speaking about today. So hit the thumbs up button real quick. I'll be right back. Whew. Okay, I am back. That heater was burning me up in here. Okay, so and let me look at my time, make sure, because I think I got another meeting coming up. I got to make sure I don't mess up my schedule. All right, so okay, so I got a few more minutes, so let me just read this to you. This is about stolen land. This is, when you're talking about Martin Luther King Day, and you're a sacred holiday like this, and you're talking about what we can do now to improve our condition and what matters now for our community. I think it's very, very important that we focus on the right things. If you focus on the wrong things, then you're going to get the wrong things. If you're not focused on what you actually need, then you're going to get what they decide to give you. And part of the reason that you've not gotten what you needed is because you've been focused on the wrong things. We need to focus on wealth and land. Land is one of the greatest ways to acquire wealth. The only wealth builder greater than land was actually slave labor. So either you're talking about land that was owned that you were working on, or the ownership of you itself. Those are the two greatest wealth builders in the United States. So let me just read this to you. This is from Black Labor, White Wealth, page 123, Dr. Claude Anderson's book. You can get it on powernomics.com. It says, stolen land, the second greatest wealth producer. Land ownership was only second to slave labor as a source of white wealth and power in America. Without the approval of the Indians, the London Company, an officially chartered immigration agency, sought to lure immigrants to America by substituting land grants of 100 acres to each colonial settler in lieu of the potential gold dividends. So this is where we talk about immigration. A lot of people were encouraged to immigrate to the United States, and they were incentivized by giving them free land. They wanted them to. So just like Biden today says immigration is his number one agenda item, not reparations. This has been going on for a very long time. They would give immigrants land to come to the United States. Other English chartering companies and colonial assemblies followed suit by offering land grants to newly arriving European immigrants. The practice of awarding land to the head of each established household was effectively used to entice European immigrants to America. These land awards represented windfall wealth that ensured economic opportunity and provided them with the basic tool for earning a living. It also generated a sense of togetherness among European immigrants in a new land. Quote, the typical colonial family only needed 2 acres of land per capita to produce sufficient food to survive, says Stanley Lebergott in his book, The Americans and Economic Record. Lebergott further stated that, quote, the greed of the European immigrants changed the use of Indian land from limited substance to widespread cash crop farming, from religious inspiration land to land speculation for capital gains. The land grants to assist colonial settlers served as one of the earliest forms of affirmative action in America. The grants gave immigrants a basic level of wealth, which they could leverage to purchase additional acreage, household and farming equipment, or bring black labor onto the land. This whites-only affirmative action program allowed 3/4 of America's colonial families to own their own farms. Land grants alone. Now, give me a yes or no. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me okay? I see someone says, I hear you. Okay, yeah, give me a yes in the chat. Let me know you can hear this. I'm reading from Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. You can go to powernomics.com to get a copy. Your children should all read this book, by the way. Land grants alone were not the only government-backed benefit given to white settlers. After all, a new nation of aristocrats and a privileged class could not be built simply on land ownership. Without an available pool of labor, land had little value. It had to be cleared and brought to production. So where you came in as black slaves, which is why you deserve to be compensated, is they needed you. They needed your labor, which they took for free to work the land. Land where you don't have anybody to work on it is not going to be valuable at all. So to achieve a maximum return from the land, the white settlers needed 2 things: cash crops and goods for European and local markets, as well as a well-disciplined, available, non-compensated, and permanent labor supply. Guess what they were talking about? The word starts with an S, and then there's the second letter in that word is a L. So somebody type that in. What word am I talking about? A non-compensated, permanent labor supply. The free white labor force would not satisfy these criteria because it was scarce and expensive. So they didn't hire white people because they cost money. They demanded something in exchange for their labor. A few European immigrants were willing to, quote, till the soil, quote, end quote, for another when free or cheap land was available to any white who wanted to homestead. So basically what Dr. Anderson's saying is that white folks didn't really want to. They didn't want to go work for other white folks. They were like, well, why don't I get some land and go get me some black people too? So that was your class. You were that pretty much that only labor class. Everybody else wanted to be in the land ownership class. If European serfdom had taught the Pilgrims anything, it had taught them that it was essential to own one's own land and strictly avoid being bound to another's land. Shortly before the Revolutionary War, wealth had accumulated in the colonies, and the settlers were some of the richest people in the world. Less than 2% of the American immigrant population had zero or negative net worth, less than 2%. So in the black community, about 40% of you have negative or zero net worth. By 2053, they said it'll be half. The median will be zero. England's tariffs and economic acts that sought to redistribute the colony's wealth to the mother country triggered a backlash of independence. After the war, the new congressional government established its own devices for transferring wealth to preferential groups. Westward expansion added new wealth-building opportunities through land and slave ownership. The Northwest Ordinance of 1787 opened this new territory for homesteading. The government sold the land at public auction for $1 per acre. So they were selling land to white folks for $1 an acre. Black people were not allowed to participate. How were we excluded? And why should we be concerned about this? Why should we be expecting reparations for this? Well, let's read further. To ensure that the land would not end up in the wrong hands, Congress in 1790 passed the first national naturalization law, which specified that America would open its doors, quote, to white immigrants only, end quote. Local governments enacted anti-mobility and anti-contracting laws that forbade blacks to either own or even step foot onto land in the new territory. Thus, government land policies had a double benefit for whites. It gave them an opportunity to gain land, and it laid the foundation for a permanent wealth gap between them and the blacks. This was in 1790, folks. This was not, they didn't start doing this 2 weeks ago. This didn't start during the election. This is 230 years ago. So your wealth gap, when they talk about the racial wealth gap, you got to go back hundreds of years to understand how long this has been in play. Your life, many of you might be 30 years old, 25 years old, 45 years old. That ain't nothing to compare to 230 years. So just understand this goes deeper than you think. And it's very important that you understand that. So the book I'm reading from is called Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. I say that in addition to this being MLK Day, I officially declare this also right now in this moment to be Dr. Claude Anderson Day. So I would love it if you haven't done it yet for your children. Go to powernomics.com and go buy those books and have your children read some of those books and read them to your kids and like bedtime stories so your kids will understand how the game is played and why the game was rigged, so they can understand how to rig the game back in their favor, because we are at war. We are in economic war. Do not forget that. So I got to run, guys. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. If you want a free copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, you can go to allblackeconomics.com. In that book, is very short. I lay out a vision for the next 50 years for the Black community. I call it Project 2070, where I believe that by the year 2070, Black people can actually lead the world in economic intelligence. I know exactly what the blueprint is because this is what I do. This is my thing, economics and wealth. So have a good day, everybody. Please hit the thumbs up button on your way out. Don't forget, tonight at 9:30, we'll be live on drboystv.com. And we're going to be talking about this whole Black Lives Matter twerking on Washington thing, which I really want to know what my panel thinks about that. I'm not even going to give my opinion on it until we have the panel tonight. So feel free to go to drboystv.com. Make sure you subscribe. See you guys soon. Have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Peace.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.